Hello, 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 and welcome back to Keerpunt Vlaanderen. I'm in a discussion for the moment on YouTube about UBI, Universal Basic Income. And in all honesty, I don't think that it will, let's say, in the least work at this moment in time. At some point in time, we will have some sort of UBI, undoubtedly. But that will only be when robots and artificial intelligence, or whatever kind of technology you would call it, will eventually take over the most difficult of tasks. Okay, the task that nobody wants to do. That's going to be probably the moment when you're going to need UBI, because people need some kind of income in order to live on a system like we have now. It's that simple. Because for a big part in Belgium, we already have partial UBI. We are what we call, or what the government likes to call, a welfare state. So I wouldn't call it a welfare state, because it's probably more made for people who want to profit off of other people than it is to help other people in times of need, which is normally the purpose of a welfare state. Is when you only can depend on that state if you are in a time of need. You're sick, you're old, you lost a job, you need a new job, stuff like that. That's times of needs. And normally most people don't get or stay sick. Okay, most people get sick and they will become healthy again. The only exception to that is getting old. Nobody gets younger. It's that simple. But in order to explain it in the most basic and simple way at this time that I can, let's say we give you a printing machine, a money printing machine, and you are allowed to, let's say you print 2,000 euros a month. That's mostly sufficient to pay the rent or pay a house, to pay the bills, and to pay for food and utilities, and probably even a little bit of clothing, and maybe you can pull in a restaurant 1 or 2 times a month. Mostly 2,000 euros is about what you need in Belgium to do so. Okay, now you're getting 2,000 euros a month, and let's say you're 25 years old. Nobody, not one 25-year-old is going to come and declog the toilet when it's clogged, when it's filled up. Nobody is going to do that, because it's a very dirty, stinking job. No 25-year-old will go and work in a factory doing mass production when he has sufficient money every month coming in. And that's one of the reasons why UBI is not going to work, because UBI stems from nothing. You are printing money that doesn't have any kind of wealth value to it. What most people don't understand is that becoming rich or losing money or gaining money is something very fluid. You can be rich today and you can be poor tomorrow, and it doesn't mean that somebody else gets rich so somebody else gets poor. It doesn't work economically like that. Okay, but when you print money, okay, and it's not me that changed that system, it was actually Richard Nixon that came up with pulling the dollar off the gold standard, and therefore lots of countries did the same thing back then. But that also means that if you print money, there has to be equivalent wealth creation against that money. Okay? So there has to be buildings built. There have to be cars built and sold. There has to be computers built and sold, and so on. So for every money, every euro or dollar or whatever you ever print, you need some kind of thing against it to print that money. Okay, you have to have a value for printing that money, because if you don't, it's very simple. The value of that money is going down, and the false impression that people then get is prices are going up. No, your money is becoming less valuable. That's what inflation is, and that's what UBI will cause in the longer term. Okay, because you're spending money that you don't have and that doesn't really exist. You're just printing it off a printer. Okay, it's not like you build a building. Let's say the building is 100,000 euros. Okay, you build it, you put in the labor, you put in the hours, you pay the people to build the building. Okay, and then that building goes up in value because you build it, so you can sell it maybe for twice the value of the building. So now you can print 100,000 euros extra because of that building, because the building is worth 200,000, and you can use that money to buy and sell other stuff with, and that's wealth creation in proportion to the money that you need to print. And if we stop doing that, okay, you need to print money, because some of the money gets lost, destroyed, stuff like that. So you need to print a certain amount of money. But the money that you print on average, has to be in proportion to the wealth that you are creating in your country. Okay, and then you have a good proportion of money that will not lose its value because it's in proportion to the wealth that you are creating. And what we see now is we are opening up the printing presses because people are living on means that they don't have. And UBI will only make that much worse, because you simply are printing money that isn't real money. That's monopoly money. There's nothing against it on that money. And the other side will be is people will not do the dirty jobs anymore, especially young people, because young people are very entitled these days. I remember when I was young, it wasn't that long ago, okay? 30 years ago I was 20 years. Okay, now I'm 50. So it's only 30 years ago. But when I see the mentality that a lot of young people have, it's crazy. They think that they are entitled to pretty much anything without even working for it. They don't want to put in any kind of effort to gain that money. They think that they are entitled to just having it, because they, as they say it, they want to enjoy life while they're young, as if you can't enjoy your life when you're older. Well, it doesn't work that way, because you have to work while you're young and capable of working. You can't expect people from my age and on, 60, 65, 70 and older, to keep on working. It doesn't work that way, because we simply can't. We are physically unable to continue to work in, for example, construction jobs. I have, just to give you an example, I have been in the windows and doors business for a long time. I have 2 bad knees. I even have to have knee replacements. This is how bad my knees are. And I have 2 hernias in my back, and I have 1 hernia in my neck. So that means that if I lift windows or doors that are heavier than 50, 60, 70 kilos, I risk of bad back injury, because my hernia is going to get compressed, and that will cause inflation, and that will cause my back to go out. Okay, that's what you get from working. That's not something. Some might sustain it in a accident. It's always possible. I sustained it because of my work, my line of work. So I progressed in my line of work to other tasks. I do calculating tasks. I do filing tasks. I do the thinking work. You know, how are we going to install it? What do we need to install it? Stuff like that. So you evolve when you get older. But when you're young, you're supposed to do the hard labor, because when you're young, your body can adapt to that hard labor. You don't see soldiers of 75. You see soldiers between 20 and 25, 30 years old. It is young men that fight wars, not old men. Because when we start doing that, well, it's game over for anybody, for any country. And that's why I am afraid of people that think that stuff like UBI is a good thing, because they don't seem to understand how an economy works. They don't seem to understand that we need people to do the dirty jobs, even though they don't like it. Don't think that my dream job, as many call it, they're looking for a dream job. My dream job wasn't making windows and doors. It wasn't selling and installing and finishing windows and doors. Far from it. But I grew up as an orphan, and at 18, 19 years old, I didn't have the means to go to college or get a higher education. So I had to work. I found a way to make a living. And all things regarded, when I look back on my life, I didn't have a bad life. I didn't have an easy life, but it wasn't a bad life. And that's something that a lot of young people don't understand, and they try to compensate that by encouraging stuff like UBI, because colleges and universities, they promote all this nonsense. And I don't get it. Well, I get it somewhere, but that's another story for another video, because it comes from a whole Marxist ideological schooling that they're trying to indoctrinate young people with nowadays. But in the reality isn't Marxism. It's not what Karl Marx wrote in his books. I read those books, and it's not what he talks about is literally impossible. You can't achieve that stuff, okay, because it's all dependent on the person itself. And what eventually is going to happen is you got a large government, and they will take over, and then you got a tyranny, and then you got everybody, or 99% of the people will be poor as hell, really poor. You won't have any middle class people, and you only will have between 1 and 5% of high politicians, and they will have everything, and they will tell you how to live and what to do and what to get, and you won't get it. Believe me, you simply won't get it. And that's why I think that UBI will never work at this moment in time. Now, there are places in the world they have some kind of UBI, but that's normal. If you, for example, live in cold areas in Alaska, or in cold areas like Norway, for example, and you don't have any economic means, and there isn't work to be done in those places, well, it's normal that the government will get you some kind of an income that you can live up there. But even those people, they do something in proportion to that UBI that they are receiving. It's not like they will be standing still. They're not receiving it by doing nothing. Pension is the same thing. Pension is a form of UBI. but you get it after 40-50 years of working, and then you get some kind of UBI called a pension, and then you can choose to work less or not at all, and that's normal. But we need young people in factories, and we need young people to do hard labor, and those young people are not going to do the hard labor if we give everybody a UBI. It just doesn't work that way, and that's because it's in the nature of how people live and how people think in general. Okay, it's that simple. So I'm against UBI at this point. The only way that you're gonna get UBI at a responsible pace is that when computers and robots and artificial intelligence, or whatever you may call it, really take over the real dirty jobs that nobody wants to do, and they create wealth and value by that way, and then you can give people some sort of money so that they can choose how to live, and if they want more, well, they can choose to get the jobs that are not there, that are not possible to be done by robots and stuff like that, and then maybe you can implement it. But I don't see it happening in the coming 10 or 15 or even 20 years or even 30 years. I think it's something maybe in 100 years, maybe. Tell me what you think. I love to discuss these things with people, so give me a like and subscribe to this crazy channel of ranting videos. I used to pay psych to talk about these things, so I decided, why not put my grievance on YouTube and talk on YouTube about what I feel and what I think to other people. Just keep the conversation nice, you know, no name calling and stuff like that. It doesn't need to be like that. Give me your honest thoughts on these kinds of things. Talk to you later. Have a nice day, and goodbye. Greetings from Belgium.